Welcome to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. You're here, my guest. We do this every Sunday night from 8 until 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Daylight Savings Time. We look at life through a biblical lens and we try to solve all the world's problems in 2 hours or less. You've heard about what's going on in California. NBC News is reporting that over 60,000 people are living on the street in LA. This is the other normal. They think they're doing everything right. The rest of us are wrong. In San Francisco, that number is officially around 10,000, but is no doubt much, much more. Unofficial estimates make it close to 25,000, and it's probably more than that. Man on the Street interviews feature people who want national politicians to focus on every social issue you can think of. Not governing so as to protect opportunities, but providing a totally inclusive society, meaning better job opportunities, better economic future, and to make sure that every antisocial, destructive social expression is at the same time protected. In my generation, I was the guy who was responsible to look out for my job opportunities and my economic future. Now, we want the government to do that. That states are mandated to do almost everything people should be doing for themselves doesn't occur to these self-appointed social architects. They just see the dollar signs cranking up as they get their program working and the government pays them or you get to pay them. They are ignorant of our laws, apparently, our Constitution, and the differences between state and federal responsibilities. Or they just simply disagree or maybe just don't care. Where did these ideas come from? Well, they certainly didn't come from the United States Constitution, which provides for national security, not economic security. A constitution that provides for religious freedom and opportunity, not assurance that your every whim is protected and that you can eat regularly. Social stability is your responsibility. It is not your government's responsibility. Financial stability is your responsibility, not the government. Opportunity is what the United States is all about, not rights, certainly not these rights. In America, you have the right to be stupid and expect that other people are just going to take care of you. Generally, that happens, but it only happens to a point. And then most people are either locked in to a very low level of experience, or they're dumped out on their ear because they can't live like that. America is about responsibility, not rights. When we talk about rights, we have only 3 rights guaranteed from our government. We have the right to life. No one can take that away from you without suffering a penalty. We have the right to liberty. Nobody can take that away from you without penalty. And we have something called pursuit of happiness. That's the old English word for opportunity. That no one can rob you of your right to either find work or start your own business, assuming that business does not create a danger to everybody else. Liberty is not license. You cannot do whatever you please. Some things infringe on other people's rights, infringe on other people's liberties, and those things must be controlled. Hopefully they're controlled by you, but if not, the government will control you. and in so doing protect everybody else. Some things, some behaviors are destructive of life. Homosexuality is one of them. These people work hard not to die. And homosexuality must be regulated as a destructive influence in the world so as not to infringe on other people. We're working hard to take all those protections away. The homosexual lifestyle is inherently destructive to the body. The body parts don't match up. They're not designed for what these people are doing. And disease follows them along with destruction. It is destructive to the family institution, to the structure, as well as to society at large. Generally because homosexuality does not provide for children. These people do not reproduce by their behavior. They have to find other ways to have children. And I pray for the children they bring into this world. For homosexuals to reproduce involves a list of other destructive practices, not the least of which is bringing that child into their warped world, their values. Locally, our state and local governments are providing more and more money to school districts. What are they getting the money for? Here in Charleston, or Dorchester County, Charleston County, there's talk about huge amount of money granted to our school system. For what? For mental health. Does anybody ever stop and ask why? These children are having mental health problems. They're 5 years old, 10 years old, 14 years old. What mental problems could a child have at that age? Oh, wait a minute. They're living in a dysfunctional society. The problem is a problem caused by bad mental health. These people are treated for bad mental health. Will that change anything? And what sort of mental health are we talking about? Chemical disruption? Emotional neglect from parents and others? Physical dysfunction? Sitting around all day with their little machines, not paying attention to anybody else except the people that are in there, and having 8,000 friends, none of which they've ever met. Is bad mental health the cause or the result? If your son or daughter was in this predicament, would you help them? Or would you just let them live on the street? The answer is found not in your value system, but in theirs. They don't want you to help them your way. These are people who have a warped social value system. Did they get it from you at home? Did they get it from TV, the internet? Did they get it from school, from their friends? These are people who are so arrogant as to believe that they are victims. They didn't cause this problem. Society did. The other generations before me did. You're the problem, Mom. You're the problem, Dad. They can point to any person or any circumstance and find fault, but they can't point to themselves. They're victims. The problem here is we have devolved into a self-oriented society. It was not, this nation was not founded on this principle. This nation was not strengthened by this principle. This nation is not supported by this principle. This principle is destructive. So what happened? Where did we go wrong? Well, in large part, we destroyed the family. This sort of selfism is partly the product of poor parenting, or no parenting at all. Both mom and dad out of the house 40, 50, 60 hours a week working. Another, how many hours of sleep? 68, I think I counted one time. That's over half the 24-hour cycle. There isn't anybody around. And where there are parents, sometimes, many times, there's poor parenting. Parents are getting their instruction on parenting from the internet and from television. All these people, all day long, watch daytime TV. You'll go nuts with the people telling everybody how to do it. Too much ease, too much free time. Things too easy coming to us. Don't have to work for it, don't have to think about it. And the pervasive media that's coming at us with an agenda. These people are not just out there to entertain, they're there to instruct and to pattern you in certain ways. And when all of that is factored out, there's just pure selfism. Human beings are innately selfish. They only care about themselves. They have to be trained to think about others. People who really believe that their values are superior, they just perhaps got a bad break. It's the tyranny of the 2-year-old. Or maybe they're just going through a rough period right now. It'll all work out at the end. They won't do anything, but it'll just sort of work out. And they think that way because they can't believe that there was anything they did that caused this. They're victims, and everybody tells them so. It's all the result of circumstances or the other people. If you would just invest $10,000 or $15,000 in their cause, they could break out of this cycle over time. Might take 10 or 15 years, but they could do it. The reality here is that for most of these people, if you gave them some money to help them out of a hole, they would look at that money as permanent. And nothing of value would change. They wouldn't take that money and double down, use it to get out there and do, no, they just take it and live off of it. You would now just simply be supporting their irresponsibility. And that's why a lot of responsible people have given up trying to help the irresponsible people in our world. Does that sound harsh? Well, go around your neighborhood and ask your friends, others who have tried to help these irresponsible adult children and see what they tell you. And who is it that would want to deliberately live a life of irresponsibility? Who is it that would expect others to take care of their problems? And who would deliberately intoxicate themselves until they were dependent on the intoxicating substance? Do they not know that these substances will take over their life? Who would set out to create a society that cannot reproduce itself? I'm talking about homosexuality. Who would advocate for a behavior that is destructive to the body and then turn around and call that love? Love is giving, expecting nothing in return. Love doesn't kill. It doesn't damage. Sexual intercourse has become entertainment. It's designed as a giving behavior, not a receiving behavior. It's designed as a giving behavior. But relationships today, marriage especially, has become about me. It's not about you. It's about me. And that's why the divorce rate is so high. That's why people who are living together without benefit of clergy are struggling. We read all the time about the damage that's being done. Either they're getting in fights with each other, or they're walking out, throwing somebody out, doing something. There is the occasional, probably about 5-10% of the people who actually make it work. But there's something in them that does that. That system is not a workable system. It used to be that tradesmen and businessmen prided themselves on being honorable, trustworthy, reliable. Now it's pretty much about the money. And we almost expect poor service. We work hard at finding someone we think we can trust. And when they let us down, well, we've learned to accept that. Realizing that getting them to make it right is a bigger job than hiring them was. Lawyers are starting to top the list, right behind used car salesmen. Not all lawyers, but lawyers in high-profile cases. They almost seem to have chosen this profession simply to make money. And apparently the law allows for almost endless series of delay and redirection. I'm sure in your community, as it is here in my community, if it were not for used car salesmen and lawyers, most of the TV programming we have would go away. It is nothing to see 2 or 3 different lawyers hawking their wares in the same break. And they're all getting crazed and over the top to get your attention. I remember when it was wrong, when it was against the code for lawyers to advertise at all. They were honorable. Advertising was not seen as honorable. And the good ones don't ever have to. You have noticed, if you watch television at all, we have destroyed the family structure, making certain that both parents work outside the home for at least 50 hours a week. We destroyed the moral fabric of our society with visual media that glorifies sex, drugs, and dysfunctional behaviors. We give our children mini computers, we call them cell phones, with access to everything imaginable in the world, and much we cannot imagine. And we do it under the guise of protection. They need to be able to get a hold of me should they have need, which is pure nonsense on its face, unless you are off living your life as though you don't have children. We made all this dysfunction appear normal, and now it's exploding in our face. But we have excuses. We have drugs. We have treatments. We have justifications. We have talk shows that pull on our heartstrings and give us advice. But children don't spontaneously wander off to find a homosexual lifestyle. They have to be carefully taught. So, well, I didn't teach. No, you didn't teach them, but the world did. Well, what can I do about that? We used to keep our children away from the world until they were old enough to handle it. And I'm not talking about 13 and 14. Children don't automatically decide to go live on the street. Children don't naturally gravitate toward dangerous people or situations. When they see something that's dangerous, they tend to recoil. until they have been lured into a fantasy world that says that's not dangerous. Unless they've been conditioned to either accept all of this or they've just never been protected from the possibilities. Parents blame the television, they blame the internet, but who gives these things to our children? Parents blame the schools, the teachers, but who sends them there? And why did you not know what was going on until it was too late? I took my son, my firstborn, out of public school when I saw his teacher wearing a miniskirt to work, parading around in front of these third grade children who were sitting in seats at eye level with those hemlines. That was 1972. My son came home telling me about it. And you might think that's extreme. Well, you've never been a teenage boy, have you? You don't know what evolving hormones can do. To allow him to stay there would have been tacit agreement on my part with that environment and that situation. We put them in all of that nonsense, and then we take them to church, where they would be taught a higher moral standard. And we stand back and watch the confusion and see what that brings. And wait to see which influence would have a greater influence over them. Today, that same young boy would have a cell phone with a window on the world, not just sitting in the seat watching his teacher. He would see the people living on the streets of major cities, even small suburbs, who had serious mental or moral problems. He wouldn't know that that was going on. He would just see that and he'd go, oh, the poor people. Their values would slowly be warped. Their sense of decency, of what's right and wrong, would gradually be warped. They would begin to justify some of these things, if not all of them, as well, it's necessary. I mean, circumstances, things happen, it's not their fault. But none of that's true. And you're the parent, you're the adult, you know that. These people have chosen this lifestyle. Not all at once, not one big bite, little tiny pieces over time. The choices were made. And they were made based on morality, the morality they chose, because their parents were not giving them any, or their parents were as bad as they are. Choices they made, their willingness to do or to be anything that was not true to themselves. You hear young people talking, I got to be true to myself. Yourself is not good. Don't be true to your selfishness. And they grow up and they say, well, I can't work for $8 an hour. So you go live on the street and beg for money. Well, no, I get welfare from the government. $15,000 a year. No, it's $10,800. But I get health care with it. Anybody want to brag on the health care you get from the government system? But all that allows you to live the life you want, right? Are there promotions within the welfare system? Salary increases? If you do well at $8 an hour at your job, will you stay at that rate? Does welfare provide you with work experience so you can get a better job? Does welfare come with references, contacts, better benefits? The $8 an hour job does, if you're paying attention. But we haven't taught our children these lessons. We thought they would just know it because we do. No, we haven't known this as a culture for the last 2 generations. And our children are paying the price.